Les saludo nuevamente en esta sesión continua de Laboratorios de Política. Ahora mismo vamos a movernos a la versión inglés para continuar con esta sesión, para lo cual, bueno, voy a continuar dando las indicaciones y dándoles nuevamente la bienvenida a quienes se están uniendo recién a la transmisión para escuchar de esta presentación que continuamos ahora. Hello everyone, welcome to this session, and now we will switch to English because, as you know, this is an international event in which youth from all around the continent are participating through different channels such as virtual and on-site later. So let me welcome our following panelists, Mr. Justin Lowell of Gallup and Mrs. Núñez, who will continue engaging with us through the introductory words. So now we will give the floor to Mrs. Núñez, such as she will tell us the introductory words. So welcome again.
Thank you very much, Cecilia, and good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Young American Business Trust, YABT, it is a pleasure to participate in the launch event for the initiative to create a America's Entrepreneurship Index in collaboration with Gallup. Undoubtedly, for both YABT and ECLAC, United Nations, the institution I represent on the YABT Executive Committee, it is an opportunity to generate very valuable information for the public policymakers of the region's governments, in charge of designing plans and programs aimed at the promotion of entrepreneurship among the youth of our region, but also the design of specific indicators aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. Young American Business Trust, an organization created from and for the youth of the Americas over 20 years ago, assigned a high priority to the strategic alliance with Gallup and is pleased to be a partner in the initiative together with ECLAC, United Nations, which will allow it to meet an objective policy lab, which is to bring the evidence and results of impact studies closer to decision makers and managers of programs with a focus on entrepreneurship and youth. In Latin America, the integration of youth population is in development process is key to advancing towards more egalitarian societies. The young population is close to 160 million people in the region, and according to the Pan American Health Organization, young people can reach the level of 230 million people in 2030. This population demands opportunities and public policies aimed at achieving a higher education level, greater training, and preparation to face current challenges. ECLAC points out that along with the persistent structural gap, there are inequalities in the development of skills and in the world of work. These inequalities, which specifically affect young people, require a response to advance on the path to sustainability with equality. The pandemic has highlighted the urgent need for policies that facilitate and promote creativity and entrepreneurship among the youth of our region. Today, the existence of a segmentation and social exclusion systems in many countries of the region has contributed to maintaining the status quo and limiting the opportunities of young people from the most vulnerable sectors of society. Although progress has been made in expanding access to education in recent decades, there has also been a high degree of segmentation, both in achievement and in the quality of the educational services provided. And this has perpetuated inequality between generations, not because some have access and others do not. However, the educational gap is not the only obstacle that young people in the region must face to continue growing. The pandemic also highlighted the existing disparity generated by the digital divide in an increasingly connected economy. In addition, the digital strategies that have been implemented in the country have done so inequality, which has undoubtedly widened the educational gap. YABT, since its creation in 1999, has been concerned with the construction and growth of social networks in the region that can be accessed, interacted with, and benefited by the largest number of young people in contact with their peers, making this tool its main asset. Today, YABT has networks in 75 countries that reach more than 100,000 young people around the world who are offered 10 products and services with the objective to facilitate access and exposure for young people, not only at the Latin American regional level, if not in other regions of the world, through its talent competition, the Américas, Eco Challenges, etc. The Americas Entrepreneurship Index is an initiative spearheaded by Gallup that helped promote the entrepreneurial spirit in young Latin Americas, investigate the regions of the continent that have the best structures to promote the fostering of the entrepreneurial mindset, as well as explore the impact of these values in people, communities, companies, and local governments. In this regard, Gallup's goals and values are common to the strategies and visions defended and promoted by YABT. The YABT Gallup Alliance promises to be successful since both organizations are aligned in their value and seek to encourage the development of the region's youth so that they occupy more and more leadership spaces and decision-making forums for the present and future of the continent. Thank you very much and welcome to participate in this very interesting initiative.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Ms. Nunez, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Mr. Figueroa and Ms. Lorena, for your partnership on this important endeavor. Gallup is beyond excited to take part in this new initiative to uncover the lived experiences of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs and young people all across the Americas. So thank you for your work and your partnership in convening this important meeting, as well as the work that we will have forthcoming. And before we get into the project and the initiative today, I want to start with a little bit of a story to kind of bring to light why this work is so critical. I'm going to tell you a story of a young man named Leo. Now, Leo was born in Puebla, Mexico, and ever since he was a young kid, he knew he was a little bit different than his friends. And what I mean by this is that when he would grow up and, his friends would be playing sports or playing football, playing in the, games in the fields, he would stay inside and think about ways to make money. As early as 5, 6, 7 years old, he was always thinking about ways to sell something. Now, he started really young and he started with selling stickers, and then he sold little posters and flyers that he made. And then he got into high school and he realized that it was harder for him to concentrate on school because he was so focused on finding ways to start businesses. And he knew that he was unique in this. While his friends were thinking about hanging out and going after whatever it was high schoolers wanted to do at the time, he wanted to build his businesses. So while he was, 14, 15 years old, he started a t-shirt business and it started making a little bit of money. His dad started to notice this and said, okay, my son is a little bit unique here. He's not playing. He's, he is doing okay in school, just well enough so he can focus on his businesses, but he's not doing the fun things that other kids like to do. He's just focused on building these businesses. He starts to get a little bit of traction. People start paying attention to him, and he gets into a pretty good school. He has to leave his hometown in Puebla to get to this school. And while he's in college at this point, he's building businesses, and he moves on from selling t-shirts, and he's actually selling now advertising and marketing services. As an 18-year-old in university, He's finding customers and clients from different towns, different shops around the region to market and promote their businesses, and it's doing pretty well. One day he starts to get the attention of some investors, some global investors, and they say, Leo, why don't you come pitch to us at this really important pitch meeting? It's going to be a little bit away. You have to travel about half a day to get there. But if you come and promote your business to us, there's a very high likelihood that you'll get investment from us so you can actually grow your full business. And you might get some really good customers out of this event too. Now you can imagine Leo was thrilled by this, a young man, 18 years old at this point, being invited to pitch his business to global investors, potentially meet new customers. This was the dream come true. This could be the key that unlocked his future as an aspiring entrepreneur to an actual entrepreneur. So Leo gets the invitation, he's looking at it, he realizes that his name is at the top of one of the businesses to pitch to investors, and he's thrilled, he's so excited. And then he goes down the list and his heart just sinks. Why does his heart sink? Because he looks at the date of the actual event, and it's the exact same day as his final exam. Again, keep in mind, he's currently enrolled in university, and so he's got exams coming up towards the end of the semester. So he says, okay, rather than stressing out about this, let me go talk to my professor to see if maybe I can get an exception. Maybe I can take the exam early, maybe I can take it later, but this event is a one-time event and it's potentially the key to my future. He goes to his professor and makes his case. He says, Professor, I apologize for even asking this, but is it possible for me to move the exam date so I can attend this really important event for my future? The professor looks at him and sternly says, there will be no exceptions, there will be no delays. You will take the exam on a given date or you will fail my class. There are only two options here. There will be no movement of the exam. Leo was very upset by this. However, keep in mind he's resilient because he's an entrepreneur, so he decides to do the next logical thing. He goes around the professor's head to the headmaster of the university. He asks her, he says, ma'am, is it possible at all? I know I was already told no by my professor that teaches the class, but I need to explain how important this is to me. This is an important activity that could unlock the capabilities for my entire future here. If I go to this event, if I present at this event, I might be able to secure the investment capital needed to launch my business on a global scale. May I please get an exception for this one day for this one exam? And you know what she says to him? She goes, Leo, I am so sorry. I wish you were an athlete. I wish you played a sport, because if you were an athlete, if you played a sport at this university, I could grant you an exception, because playing sports and playing any sort of athletics is a reason that I can give you to miss an exam. However, since that is not the case, since you're not an athlete and this is not a school sanctioned activity, I cannot give you an exception. You have to take the exam. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that odd that there are certain activities that we encourage our youth to take part in while ignoring other ones like entrepreneurship that could be a path to economic development for the entire region? It got us thinking at Gallup that there are systems in place that are very good at identifying young talent and developing and nurturing that young talent in some domains like athletics, where I can go up through the entire ranks of the school system and have that be a core part of my identity, and that be okay and accepted, and schools and universities will make exceptions for that. But when it comes to building a business or building a potential company that could employ tens, hundreds, thousands of individuals in the community, there are no systems in place. There's no process to identify, develop, and nurture that talent in the same way it exists for other domains. So my colleagues and I at Gallup have been thinking about this for years of how do we ensure that the future Leos of the world are able to have a system that supports them, but also explore their own potential as future entrepreneurs. And I do want to be clear, this is by no means disparaging of that specific university or the education system at large. This is just simply a reflection of the systems that we have in place around the world here. This is exactly what we see in all of our research and all of our exploration, regardless of where we're doing this type of work. So we began this initiative and we began thinking about where would be the best place to start in identifying and developing entrepreneurial talent. And this is where we came into contact with the leaders at the Young Americas Business Trust, and we began to formulate this idea of the Americas Entrepreneurship Index. And our goal here is to really identify and develop the entrepreneurial talent, the aspiring entrepreneurs, by removing barriers to entrepreneurship, much like the one I described, or other barriers that we might not be aware of. And the goal would be that policymakers, leaders, business owners, future aspiring business would take this information and have a framework to help develop their regional capacity for entrepreneurship. Our goal again here is to better create a world in which entrepreneurs can thrive in their given field. I'm going to share for just a few moments here what the Americas Entrepreneurship Index is, what our plans are, and then we'll go into kind of what the next steps are. But before we do that, I will share a little bit about Gallup as an organization. As you may know, Gallup is a global organization that has been uncovering the will of people around the world since the 1930s. And we began in the United States with Dr. Gallup's mission to understand what it means to live a life well lived. We're really deeply interested in understanding what does it mean to uncover well-being from all the facets of life, not just those that are easiest to capture. Because of this, we've set up a representative infrastructure in over 168 countries across the world that get on an annual basis representative data about every aspect of those individuals' lives. We go out and we create the only representative database that gets at things like financial inclusion, how many individuals are included in the banking system, hunger, what is the experience of hunger from people across the world, and things like modern slavery and those that are in forced labor across the world. Our Gallup World Poll infrastructure created the official indicators that have been adopted by the United Nations for tracking of progress on the Sustainable Development Goals for those three I mentioned: financial inclusion, slavery, and hunger. And we track a whole host of other indicators like aspirations for business ownership, like barriers to business ownership. And what we're proposing through this project is to work with the Young Americas Business Trust to really get at what is the current state of entrepreneurship across the Americas. And here's the reason. We know that the Americas have been a leader in creating entrepreneurs for years. We know that the oh, sorry, my screen went away. Let me go ahead and share it again. We know that the Americas have been a leader in creating entrepreneurs for years. And we also know that economically, that when economic stagnation hits a region, just like it has in these past, since COVID across the world, we're seeing periods of economic slowing and stagnation. Entrepreneurship is the single greatest solution that a region can employ. And so in order to combat this very clear economic slowing, one of the best things we can do is create environments where entrepreneurs can thrive. And so in order for that to happen, what we need to do is first get an understanding of what's going on in the ground. Where are pockets of success in entrepreneurship existing, and why do those pockets of success exist? Here's what we learned from some research that was carried out, particularly in the United States, when it comes to comparing the quality of the startup based on the regional and the local economic, the entrepreneurial ecosystem compared to the overall region's economic growth. And as you can imagine, the higher quality the startups in a specific region, the better the economic growth over a 10-year period. So there's some very clear evidence that investing in entrepreneurship in a given region will lead to overall economic growth. Our goal here is to understand what it is, as I mentioned, what are the barriers, how do we remove those barriers, and then how do we lay the groundwork so we're creating regional economies of entrepreneurship that can help young aspiring entrepreneurs thrive regardless of their background, regardless of the starting point they come from, whether it be financial, educational, or otherwise. What we're aiming to do is to promote entrepreneurship as a viable pathway by understanding what is the experience of those entrepreneurs that have been the most successful. And as I've mentioned a few times now, uncover those barriers for entrepreneurship, but also getting into this idea of the entrepreneurial mindset. What is the entrepreneurial mindset? And beyond the economic impacts of entrepreneurship, what does the entrepreneurial mindset do to potentially the well-being of the community, the well-being of businesses, individuals, community members, the positivity or optimism they may feel? How can we better and deeply explore how an entrepreneurial mindset can impact more than just the economics of a specific region? The way we're going about this is really driven by the communities themselves. So we're starting with a period of desk research, but then having a long period of qualitative inquiry, meaning we are planning to sit down and have focus groups and conversations with young aspiring entrepreneurs, but also have in-depth conversations with leaders in the region to ensure that we're uncovering insight that will not only be valuable to drive policy, but also be valuable for the individual entrepreneurs that need better data to ensure that their businesses thrive. We're going to be starting with the regional data collection initiative, starting with 3 countries and hopefully expanding out to the entire region after this first year. And then we'll be working with YABT to disseminate the information there. I'm going to go ahead and pause there. I'm happy to, stay on for any additional discussion. One thing I'll encourage this group to do as you're going through the sessions in the next few days, think about, when you think about your own local regions, your own economies, what are the existing support resources that exist for entrepreneurs and young people that want to become entrepreneurs? Is there anything that comes to mind when it comes to, if I wanted to start a business today, who would I turn to? How would I get started? Are there really good support resources in your local regions that you can think of? And on the other side, what are the barriers? Well, when you think about the challenges to starting a business, so whether it be financial, whether it be, a policy, whatever it might be, thinking about from your own standpoint, what are those barriers? What are those challenges that we could work to uncover together? That is all I have at this point. Again, thank you all for your time. I appreciate your engagement with this session. Again, I'll stick around, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Justin, for this presentation and provide also those elements that can be part of this initiative. And I just want to ask the public if somebody has a question that want to ask to Justin, would be great. This is a moment. Or if you want to think about it and send your questions, it also be a good alternative. At the moment, we don't have questions in the chat, but if somebody wants to ask something. No questions? Do you have a question? No questions. Well, thank you so much, Cecilia.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for such an amazing presentation, Mr. Justin. And now we will receiving some comments regarding, thank you for your presentation. And now we will invite you, of course, to keep us in touch. I mean, in terms of what's the follow-up, the follow steps for this index among the continent. So we will keep in touch with you. And of course, sharing any report or document that you could provide us in terms of this amazing work that you are leading through the Gallup organization. So now we will thank you again for this presentation, and we will continue with the following agenda, as we have some dynamics and activities for youth delegates who are participating via Zoom and the following social media, of course. As you might know, we will continue with the agenda on the on-site format, and for this, we will have broadcasting and transmission through this session and the other social networks. So now, thank you so much, everyone, for your participation here, and please keep here to continue for the following activities. Have a great day, and thank you so much, Mrs. Núñez.